As I said,
That's really,
I didn't hear that.
really dramatic.
I didn't know you were recording.
So,
Good morning. Obviously, we have a small group here. As I said, my name is Andrew Claeson. I am the retirement plan counsel for American Fund that covers a little bit in New York. Been there for 16 years. I've been at Capital Group American Funds for 10 years. And then prior to that, I was a Fidelity advisor for 401k rep for 15 years. Actually, before joining Capital Group 10 years ago. So they asked me to come in and just give you an update on the legislation that we have going on in the retirement plan space. So I thought I would do 3 things, talk about what the government is doing and why they're doing it when it comes to helping folks save for retirement. Talk about what's going to be happening here in New York locally. And then lastly, nationally, the Secure Act 2.0, some provisions there that should be aware of. But obviously, we have a small group here, so I'm happy to be flexible with the agenda, and then that'll be more appropriate for your questions. So, feel free to ask me questions as we go along. Okay. So that being said, why is the government doing this? Well, we do have. It's a major problem here that we don't think about that often, but most Americans, by far, most Americans have not saved enough for retirement, right? So, and it's becoming, and it is a major problem here in the United States. And so they're trying to address that, essentially, what they're trying to do. So, and it's not really a lot of people's fault. They weren't encouraged to save, especially folks that were a little older, let's say than me. I'm 49 today, as we said, birthday. 49.
Oh, happy birthday.
We weren't really trained to save as the younger folks are now. They're learning more to start saving earlier. I think about my parents, and they retired 5, 6, 7 years ago. They didn't save that much for retirement, but they're perfectly fine. Right? Why? Because what do they have that we don't have today? Most people don't have today. It's a pension plan, so it's a defined benefit plan, right? And they also have Social Security, so they're fine. So defined benefit plans have been going away, as you probably know, most companies have them. As well as with Social Security, we don't know what's going to happen there either. The government has posted that as of 2033. There's enough funding to pay 80% of what they're saying that they're going to be paying. So, I'm assuming that politically they're going to try to fix that, but that's what they're saying now. And again, I'm sure they're working on addressing that. So it's a major problem. So, and 401k plans were not designed to replace defined benefits and Social Security. They were designed to complement. But now they're essentially replacing this working to find out. So that's why they're addressing the issues that we have. And so we're trying to encourage folks to save. So at a state level, have you heard of Secure Choice yet here in New York? Have you even heard of it yet? So most business owners haven't, a lot of individuals haven't. So essentially what it is, it started in other states. So California has done this already, Illinois, Washington, Connecticut, etc., and now New York. When I say now New York, so this went through legislation 2 years ago. Well, secure choice. It's not live yet, so you're going to hear about it probably fairly soon. My guess is before the end of the year. So not live yet, but it went through legislation 2 years ago. No other state has taken nearly as long to launch the products after it goes through legislation, but it's New York, so nice and take a bit longer. But essentially what it is, and there's a, you don't have to go to the brochure. I've got a state plan brochure here on top. Essentially, what it is, if you've been in business for 2 years or longer and have 10 or more employees, including part-time, if you're not offering them a retirement plan, so a SEP, a simple, a 401k, or a 403b, because it doesn't include nonprofits, you're not offering them a retirement plan. You're going to have to set up an automatic enrollment program of employees' money into a state-run IRA. So it's automatic enrollment of employee money. It's 3%. So if you get a new employees and you're not offering them a plan, you'll have to give them a notice saying, we're going to take 3% of your compensation, pull you into a state-run IRA. It's only Roth option. New York State wants to tax money, so it's free tax, right? So only Roth. An employee can opt out, but they have to choose to opt out. So I have to say, no, I don't want to enroll in the plan. And you'll have to sign off on it. So you're probably gonna hear about it fairly soon because they finally gave us more details on who they're gonna be working with. There's a company called Well that will be the custodian for the IRA. They've selected a handful of investment options that folks will have to choose from. And so we're getting really closer to getting a launch date. Once it goes live, companies will have 9 months to comply. Organizations will have 9 months to comply. So we can start participating in their own plan. So start their own simple 401k, 403b, or start this facilitation into the state one. So this will, it does encourage folks to save. It does drive a lot of savings. I can tell you an example for California. The state-run plan does have a lot of assets in it at this point because folks starting to do this, as well as our startup plan business on our 401k side in simple plans runs almost double what it normally would as well. Because a lot of businesses they do the state thing, or they say, you know what, I'd rather do my own plan and work with my local advisor and have more customized for this. So, but again, like I said, this will drive a lot of startup plan business, but as well as encourage folks to save. Any questions on that at all? All right, so more to come. They've been quiet on purpose because they didn't want anybody to kind of panic that they have to do something before anything was live. But once they actually settle on stage, which I think they're going to close, they might guess in January 1st. I think it's going to be like, so you'll hear about New York Secure Choice. It's going to need to do something. You'll hear a lot more about it when something actually said like that.
So what state entity actually facilitates the program? Like if people are calling us and being, who do I call the state? But
so there's going to be Well is the custodian on,
right.
On this. So they'll be actually called Well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's already on the website for the New York Department of Labor. You can look it up. If you Google New York Secure Choice, New York Mandatory IRA, you'll see it come up with information already. But essentially, that's what's going to be the custodian. So that's who I'm assuming that's who they'll actually be calling. Yeah, there's been 2 major companies that have done this as the custodian. Ascensus is one, and Bethwell the other. So Bethwell handles the Connecticut plan, the Virginia plan, and down New York as well.
Maybe I may have missed it, but which year does this go live? Is it 2024?
So they haven't set a launch date yet, but they're getting their act together. So I think it's going to be January 1st, and then they'll have 9 months to complete. So that would be my guess. Again, just a guess. A lot going on, obviously, globally, locally.
Yeah.
Every other state goes through legislation in 6 months, products launched.
And then they're required to do it within that 9 months or 1 year.
Yeah,
period.
yeah. And if they don't comply, most states apply fines that are pretty significant. In reality, here's what I really envision in New York. So as an employee, I can opt out, but I could choose to opt out. So I envision, landscaping company, 12 people. It's gonna be, Jimmy, you don't want to do this, right? That's what I thought. Sign here. Billy, you're out too. Sorry, everybody opted out, and they're not really going to do anything. Scenario 2, a lot of companies will do the state on IRA. Like I said, California, these other states, it does get a fair amount of traction. And then scenario 3, you know what? I'd rather do my own plan, work, get more guidance and support. Who knows what New York's going on? Start your own plan.
This is for businesses 10 and up, so like the small ones are not going to be captured.
Correct, but it's technically part-time. So this will affect, think about restaurants or even landscaping companies, it will affect a lot of business.
Right.
And a lot of folks don't realize that are in the professional world, most people don't have access to private plans. Only 51% of Americans have access to a business retirement. Yeah, 51%.
Has New York set a requirement for eligibility? Like, when you talk about like restaurant part-time workers, you might have a kid who's home for the summer who wants to wait tables.
Yeah, it's gonna be, anybody would be eligible. So again, I can opt out, though. I can say I don't wanna do it, but anybody, any part-time worker would be eligible to start contributing. It's subject to the IRA limits, it's just like having a regular IRA, it's just the responsibility for the company and the organization to facilitate
So
this.
there's not an hourly or age.
They haven't said
requirement.
any hourly or age. requirement.
I imagine it's 18.
Yeah, probably,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll, it's gonna be, soon as they set this last day, there'll be this, I'm sure, cheat sheet sort of thing that will outline more details.
Then we'll have you back.
Right.
Because of us.
Yes, there'll probably be more people in the room.
Yes, absolutely.
So say you have someone who comes home for the summer, college kid, and they're working, they get into this program and then. They get a different job, could they, I mean, they'll still have to. Participate, but they can still put the money into that, whatever they've chosen, is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly,
You know,
yes.
So where they're working, this is going into their account,
You-
because not everyone stays in the same company.
Yeah, exactly, so that's why, so this isn't gonna be held at the company, right, so it's held at the state, well, that's well.
Yeah.
And so if I'm working at an ABC company, the money's coming out of my paycheck going here, and then I change jobs. And then it would, if I wanted to continue again without opting out, then that money would be going to the
Right,
set.
not like it will be all these
Yeah, you won't,
things on.
yeah, more details to come with it, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could just, your account number,
Mhm.
and then you go to the SIG, that, I'm assuming. They would not make somebody have all these different accounts, you know, it'd be the same account, but you would just have to now start.
Probably like social.
Yeah.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah,
When it comes to contributions, are these going to be in the same bucket as an individual retirement arrangement, an IRA? Or is it gonna be a separate contribution, like a 401k? You know, you can do 22.5 as your limit. With an IRA, you can do 6,500.
Mhm.
If you have a Roth and a traditional, the combination can't exceed 6,500. Does this get into that?
it does, yeah, it's that same way,
Okay.
Yep.
So you cannot do, you know, state mandated plan. And then have a separate and exceed the limit.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see more to come, like I said, you're gonna get bullets on this, more people are gonna be made aware of it as soon as they set that last state, because they're gonna have to get the word out and then probably follow them. So the one negative to do your own plan would be cost. So if I do a simple plan, you may or may not know, if I do a simple plan as a company, I have to put employer money in, I'm required to put employer money in, so that requires cost. If I do a 401k plan. Or a 403b plan, then I have costs, I have record keeping costs, the record keeper typically. Or there's something called a third party administrator that does administration, so there's costs involved with starting your own plan. And that's where the third topic I have is Secure Act 2.0 comes into play. And this is a coincidence with all these state plans, and there's a flyer here on the back. I'll kind of run through, I won't run through every single provision, especially the time, but. There are some significant tax credits. That companies receive now when they start their own plan for the first time. So this is as of January, there's some other tax credits that were more limiting, they expanded that as of last January. So if I say, you know what? I don't want to do my New York State plan, I want to start my own. I get tax credits of $250 per non-highly comped employee. That's just eligible for my plan, up to 100% of my costs, so whatever I write a check for as a company. Capped at 5,000 each year, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, for each of the first 3 years. So if you have, let's say you've got 12 plus employees. That most likely would be more than enough, the 250 times 12 to pay for. All of my record keeping and administration costs, if I decide to start my own plan. For each of the first 3 years, tax credit, so obviously nonprofits, you're not paying taxes, you're not showing a profit. Taxes rate, but so for most companies that are paying taxes, that will pay for their costs for each of the first 3 years. As well as if I'm giving my employees money, so many organizations, companies do a profit sharing and or matching contribution. There's again, don't worry about going to it, there's a flyer on these tax credits specifically that I've attached here. But you receive, and for those that are logged in, we can email this out to them. But you also get, for each employee, if I have 50 or less employees, and I started playing for the first time, if the employee makes less than 100,000, I'm giving them money, profit sharing, either a matching contribution. The first 1,000 I give each employee, I also get back in the tax credit for each of the first 2 years. And then I get 75% of that in year 3, 50 in year 4, 25. Just kind of a high level example, 20-person organization starts a plan for the first time. All my administration costs are paid for each of the first 3 years. And then, and by the way, by year 4, there's usually, if they don't want to pay any money for record keeping, there's usually enough assets in the plan that they won't have any costs where they can take it up for an asset. Well, let's say 20-person, they do it, all the record keeping costs are paid for, 18 of the 20 makes less than 100,000. I'm doing a profit sharing contribution, I would get another 18,000 back, and then I'm starting to do it. So it's pretty significant tax credits that the government is providing for organizations and companies to serve them. So I think again, coinciding with the New York State mandated plan, if a lot of companies understand these tax credits, a lot of them will say, even more will say, hey, I'd rather just do my own plan and know that costs from there. I can work with a local consultant advisor to help me design a plan more specific to my company, my employees. Any questions on that at all? Okay, so pretty straightforward. Other options, Secure Act 2.0, RMDs, required minimum distributions, moved out the age from 72 to 73 this year, is going to be moving out to 75 in 10 years. In Roth, they're encouraging more Roth options, so after tax options. And so Roth for simple plans, for if you have a simple plan, enter a company and do simple plans, you can now do Roth, never did before. 401k plans, and 403b, if you're giving the employees money. So as a matching or profit sharing, they used to always have to be pre-tax money. You can now allow the employees to have that be a Roth option. The employees can say, the company match or profit sharing, I'd like that to be Roth. Legally, most record keepers, including us, are not set up to handle that yet. We're targeting January for our solutions for that. So the employer would still get the tax deduction, the employee would pay taxes on that money, and that would go into the plan. So and then next year, Roth as well, they bumped it out now. So next year, it was going to be, if I made over 145,000 and I was doing a catch-up contribution to over 50, I could put more money in. That was gonna have to be Roth next year. They changed that, they moved that out a couple of years. So that's the one error on this. If you go to, if you're looking at this and you see required catch-up contribution Roth, actually the error, they changed it 2 weeks ago, so we haven't updated the flyer.
It's kind of a big deal in our community here because we have several very large employers that are on 403Bs that don't have any Roth option.
Yeah.
So major plan change, and so.
Yeah, they would have to have it. Essentially, every plan is gonna have to have Roth now as an option, where someone, yeah.
Does that mean if they're making this allowance to comply with the Secure Act, that they have to allow Roth contributions for everybody to elect? Instead of being forced to do Roth like 145,000, if a participant wants to contribute after tax money, so they don't pay tax on it again.
Yeah.
Good
question. Yeah, I don't know if that's the answer. I don't know the answer to that. My guess is
it's not mandated though.
My guess is it's going to be mandated for those over 145,000 that the can to be brought. Again, they bumped it out a couple of years, so it gives people a little time to figure it out. But you would still be able to limit the implant and not be Roth, would be my guess. There would be no reason to do that.
Yeah.
There's
Once
no
you have it on.
downside.
And
Yeah, there's no downside, but you probably could carve that out. I don't know.
By bumping out a couple more years, do you mean a couple calendar years, or do you mean a couple years of age?
A couple of calendar years
Okay.
for that required.
start
Right.
date.
Gotcha.
The bottom of this form, you'll see it says starting Roth for catch up 145,000 after 2023.
Right.
So that would have been next year. That's now after 2025.
Okay.
Okay, that's the one, again, an update for this form. The, yeah, they're encouraging more Roth and requiring it in a couple of years. Because they want tax money now, right, so you get it, and that money will come out, barring major changes, tax-free 20, 30 years from now. Most legislators don't care about that because they're gonna be retired by then, so. It's like getting the tax money.
Same thing with social security, like what impetus they have to change it when it's 10 years out from having a shortfall.
Yeah. So some other provisions with this, not to get again too much into the weeds, but there's next year is gonna be an option for you to add an emergency Roth savings program for your employees if you'd like. It's simply automatic enrollment for non-highly competent employees into the plan, again, only Roth. They would be able to get the match, and it's capped at 3% of their compensation. And they're able to redeem that money. So there's an emergency withdrawal option of $1,000 that they can take out without any penalties. As long as they pay that back within 3 years. So again, just encouraging business owners to get more folks contributing into the plan. And then also making it so it's not a major hassle to get that money out. So another hardship withdrawals, it's not on the sheet, but hardship withdrawals used to be where the employer would have to get a certification that there really is a hardship. That's not the case anymore. So the employee can now self-certify that. For this year as well. So yeah, just trying to make it easier for folks to put money in the plan, and then one of the big concerns, I can't get that money. Once I put it in, well, they're making it easier to get some of that money out. And maybe that would encourage folks to save money.
Can I ask you from a facilitation standpoint, like, and it's fine if you don't know, so you're still getting things set up. But like how it works in our company is when someone becomes, when people are eligible for a plan, I'm like, call Steve, you know what I mean? And then hopefully they do, but I can also tell them if you really don't want to, then fill out this form and I can just enter it later on. But I always tell them. And then I go, you don't want it, financial advice from me. Definitely. So will that change at all? Like, will these Roth requirements and such, or options, will they be check marks on the form, or like, I just want to make sure that people are understanding what their options are.
Yeah. The
And
answer is it's still called Steve.
okay, yeah,
I'm just kidding.
that's always my first answer.
You need to hire some more staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it'll be on the form, so they'll have the option, and they'll say Roth,
Mhm.
and then if you decide, does the organization give the employees any money at all?
Yeah, we have the 5%.
Okay, so it'll also be, the form will be updated, it's gonna say, if you decide, again, as an organization, you can say, hey, we can have that be Roth for that.
Mhm.
The form will be updated to say employer contribution, do you want that to be?
Okay,
Yeah, it'll be updated.
so we'll
So,
say, what is that? Okay,
but yeah, all that stuff will be updated.
great.
Yep. So this will become second nature, again, it's gonna be new for some folks, but it'll become second nature. Payroll needs to be updated as well, because payroll needs to tax those employees and then it would go in. It would have to be fully vested assets,
Mhm.
because once the employees pay tax, there's no way to unwind that and then bring it back to the organization, so these are things that payroll needs to look at.
Mhm.
But we're targeted to be set for January.
Okay.
Next year as well, there's something called the student loan provision. Where if this is again only an option, could be an option for the organization. You could say, okay, somebody's paying down a student loan. And so hypothetically, I'm paying a student loan, so I can't put money into the chamber plan because I can't afford to do that. Now I'm missing out on that 5% match, but I want to do the right thing and pay down my student loan. You can say as an organization, whatever they're paying down in their student loan, is as if they put that money in the plan. And you receive the match. So you would receive.
Just like from the government?
No.
No,
From us. I was like, what? Got it.
Generosity.
Oh, okay.
of the Company
Yeah,
or organization to say, we want to encourage them to pay the student loan. And we know that, it's tough for general folks that paying that, they can't put money, they're missing out on their match hypothetically. So you could say, whatever you're paying for that loan, those same dollar amounts as if you put it in the plan
Mhm.
and then receive the match.
Mm.
So that's an option for next year.
That's really interesting.
That is interesting.
So I envision, you know, a lot of smaller companies may not follow with that provision. I think, maybe a lot of larger companies that are attracting young professionals, that they don't have student loans, et cetera, that this will be something that will be adding to,
So not mandated, but an option.
just an option for next year.
Mhm.
Those are the major ones for next year. Any companies that start their own plan for the first time now, as of 2025, they're gonna be required to add automatic enrollment to any plan. Automatic enrollment, 3% of their employees' money, and then an automatic increase of 1% per year up to 10 as well. So as an
Wow.
employee, I can opt out, but I have to choose opt out. So say I don't wanna roll, or let's say I was enrolled, now my contribution goes up by 1% each year. I have to opt out of that.
And you have to opt out annually, like, or just
the
the
first
one time?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you won't be.
Yeah.
Continue to be bumped up to 10.
Apathy is a powerful force.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's the counter to it. It's to say, hey, if you don't want to contribute, so your paycheck is getting too slim on your take home. You can go in and adjust these things, but they're gonna be automatic
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
future
So when,
for new people.
when companies add automatic enrollment, the reason why I go this, companies add automatic enrollment, the participation rate is usually in the low 90s. Without automatic enrollment, it's in the low 60s.
Yeah, I believe that.
It's big, because people are, you know, oh, okay, I guess I should be doing this.
So if someone opts out, but then they say, next year, I'm gonna opt, can they opt back in?
Yeah.
Could they-
You could always opt back in. You know, obviously, every plan is different when it comes to eligibility and enrollment, but most of the time, once I'm already eligible and I say no. At any point, I can usually opt back in. Sometimes it's enrollment periods, they do quarterly or something like that.
And think about the demands on a new employee's time when they're starting a new job. The benefits are not at the top of the list for things they gotta get done. I mean, of course, healthcare, yes, but retirement plan might get pushed to later, so this helps address that.
They're increasing the catch-up contributions as well, so we'll having people save more money, there's some stuff here in the, on the thing, I'm gonna go into the details there. Something called a savers credit, if you're in a lower income bracket and you save money, you usually get more money off of your taxes. They're changing that in a couple of years, they're not gonna just give you basically money back because they're taking it off the tax. You're gonna be depositing into a retirement account for you instead.
Mhm.
So this is gonna be a good thing as well. So at the end of the day, again, I won't run through all these provisions, but. Whether you have a plan today or planning on starting it, most of these provisions, you can't do anything today. Because even though some of the stuff is legal, like the employer contribution being Roth, so technology needs to be upgraded. In both the payroll side and the record keeper side. So that should be resolved by January for most. And that's when you'd want to sit down with your advisor that you're working with, so you go through it and say, okay. What do we want to add or not add to our plan? Do we want to add that student loan provision? Do we not want to use something like that? Do we want to allow the Roth for the employer contribution? So that's when you really want to sit down and go through it and enter all the details. Any questions on that? I mean, unrelated to my world, this along here, the Secure Act 529 plan assets, so if anybody has any 529 plan assets. You can now roll that to a Roth, I think it starts January. You can roll any excess assets to a Roth option, so that's a new provision in Secure Act 2.0. It's not a backdoor sort of Roth savings option that we thought it was. It's only money that the account had been started 15 years ago. It's only money that it's no money you put in the last 5 years, it's gonna be older assets. And then when you roll it over, it has to be subject to the IRA limit to the beneficiary that you're rolling to. So it's but you'll
That same beneficiary.
same beneficiary, change the beneficiary, the clock 15 years starts again.
This is a big deal, especially for people who overfund a 529. Kid goes to college, they go to
Right.
grad school, they got scholarships or whatever. Now, what do I do with all this money? It's 35,000, is that?
35,000 capped, total, but then each year you can only roll over the IRA limit. So whatever that person's IRA is, 6,500. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would have applied to my family, my only daughter graduated from St. John Fisher. They give merit, and so she got half off, we got 6,000 or 7,000 extra money left over. But then my younger daughter was over by school, we told that to carry that. But-
It's a great way for parents to help get their kids off on the right foot towards retirement savings.
Yeah, you know. So.
Yeah.
What else do I need? I just, a couple other just small things that aren't on my sheet there. The, talk about self-certification for hardships, there's notices that need to be notified for employees and certain things like fund changes in plans and stuff like that. Most of those notices for those that are not participating in the plan, but eligible, have gone away, where you don't have to notify everybody. You do have to send everybody their summary plan description every year. But you don't have to notify everybody. With that notice thing, for those that have the plan, we do for the chamber, I would just send it to everybody in this, because I don't think that's really that. The last thing was in 2025, part-time employees for eligibility. They used to have to work 500, at least 500 hours for 3 years in a row, and then they would be eligible regardless of what your eligibility requirement is. They changed it now to only 2 years. So 2 years, 500 eligible for you. This is, again, but at the end of the day, a lot of times legislation is, not necessarily in the best interest of folks, but most of the stuff is encouraging folks to start saving today. As we talked about earlier, major problem with most Americans not saving enough money. And this is encouraging folks when it comes to this automatic enrollment stuff, etc. Offering more options like the raw. And then as well as making it so that they can take that money out if they need to as well. And then with all these tax credits incentivizing businesses, it's very important. Any other questions at all for me? Anything else that I can be addressing either on this topic or anything else relating to the retirement?
No, it's super informative.
Yeah.
All right,
If you like the changes, I agree.
Yeah.
It's always like complicated to work through at first, but seems like a lot more options.
Trying to get incentivized people to save.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
making it
critical.
easier.
I think we were just ranked like 37 on the planet as a country as far as our social security and
Yes.
retirement benefits. So,
yeah, oh, really?
It was like a
Middle.
day or two ago.
Yeah.
in